All right, welcome to another episode of Medicine Mondays. I am yours truly, Dr. Pierre, your favorite board certified internist, host of Medicine Mondays, Real Physician Reacts, as well as the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry. Just again, lots of different hats, which I definitely enjoy. This week, I am bringing it's going to be one of those combination episodes where I talk in a business related mindset, but it's definitely going to help out, especially for my health related focus listeners and followers of the show as well as the podcast, right? So, the title of this week's episode is Getting Out of Your Comfort Zone. And I want to kind of talk about kind of what led me to say, you know what, I think I need to talk about this right now, especially as we're going into the mid year, where by this time, a lot of New Year's resolutions are kind of falling to the wayside. A lot of people are kind of content with the fact that those New Year's resolutions kind of fell to the wayside. And when I speak about my business owners, a lot of my business owners are just kind of like, yeah, I'll just, it's just going to be another year. I got to work some more, but they're not really trying to push themselves to that next level. And I think, especially at a time when you're getting to the mid part of the year where you're like, all right, what did I do for this past 6 months? And did I like what I did for this past 6 months, or do I plan on changing what I did for this past 6 months? Like, this is usually June is where that decision occurs, right? So I figured this would probably be the best time to come talk to you guys, just to kind of make sure we understand that in a lot of different instances, our comfort zone is what I would consider sometimes our danger zone, right? And again, not saying danger in the more explicit sense where like, oh, it's going to be something bad if you stay in there. But if you're trying to grow, whether you're trying to gain weight, lose weight, if you're trying to gain more customers, get a bigger following, if you're trying to do those things, when you're in a position of comfort, it becomes a problem because you typically don't want to hop out of it, right? So I want to talk about a couple different instances that kind of led us to this point. So I was talking to a good family friend of mine who was, concerned that they weren't at the position that they thought they'd be this time of the year, right? Again, like I said, this is when we start reflecting. And they thought that, you know what, I thought I made the changes in the beginning of the year. Like, I thought I took the right action steps in the beginning of the year. But when I look back and I look at myself and like, man, I'm still not where I'm going to be. And more importantly, I don't know if just staying where I'm at is now going to be a negative effect. Because I think a lot of times when we think about the comfort zone, and we'll talk about what the comfort zone is. When we think about our comfort zone, we think that as long as I'm here, as long as I'm, staying afloat, I'm okay. But as especially if you're, financially inclined and when you hear about the word inflation, you understand that just kind of, staying the same is not going to be enough, right? Like the amount of money that you could have spent to buy a gallon of milk last year is not going to get you that same gallon of milk this year, right? So just your inability to recognize that even if you just kind of remain afloat, that actually will become a negative in your life was something that my family member was just really starting to think about. And it's tough because obviously life happens, right? All of these, different obstacles were in their way. All of these different challenges were in their way. And they said I just would have did better if, this person helped me, or I just would have did better if this result would have came out. I just would have did better if that, which is likely 100% true. But my thought and especially when I was talking to them, I said, you know what, we can't even allow that to be the reason why when we look towards the end of the year that we don't do absolutely nothing. Because that's what a lot of us do, right? We get into this month of June, July, August. We had some, some health things that we wanted to change, and we don't really change them. And we say like, oh, well, since it's June, July, and I didn't change them, I'm just not going to change it now. I'll wait till next year. How many of you are waiting until next year to make the changes that you likely need to make yesterday? And for those, especially if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, it's probably like, yeah, that's probably me, right? And again, the changes could be big, could be small, but there are a lot of people who are waiting for a certain date in the future to make the changes that they should be making right now, right? And that's obviously why I want to come out here and say, like, let's get out of this comfort zone. First of all, let's call the comfort zone out like we should and say like, nah, that's a problem. That's a danger zone for us. Like we need to get better. So then I was talking to, again, so that's my family member. Then I started talking to one of my patients. Again, you guys know that I work in an acute care center. I also work at a rehab. I also work at a long-term care facility for those who, may not understand the levels. So I was talking to one of my patients in my long-term care facility. So these are patients who are typically in a hospital setting after they've been in an acute care setting for a couple of weeks, but they're not quite healthy enough to just go home. So I'm talking to them, and I could tell there is some anxiety, but even a little bit of depression kicking in, because now like they're on month 3 of being in the hospital, month 3 of being away, from their own bed, right? Month 3 of not recognizing the fact that like, man, I don't even know what the sun looks like anymore, right? It's been 3 months because of all of the, the medical issues that they're dealing with. So then they start thinking to themselves like, man, like, am I ever going to get better, or is this going to be it? Because now they're at the point where, they have an injury. They're so weak, and, they don't walk the same, their strength isn't there. And now they want to try to fix in their minds, like, what, this may be my new normal. Like, this may just be the new normal where I can barely get up. I need people to help, bathe me. I need people to help feed me. Like they're already trying to succumb to those thoughts, because in their comfort zone of being ill for so long, like that's all they know, right? They don't know that, especially because before all of this occurred, they used to be able to get up, move around. They were very active. And then after 3 months, 90 plus days, here they are, not as active as they want to be, finding the most, the meaningless, like low hanging fruit of tasks, seeming like a mile, right? And now they're like, you know what? The stress and burden that it takes me now to get up and go to a chair, get up, go to the bathroom, get up and try to even get myself dressed is so much that I'm thinking I'm just gonna, I'm gonna stay right here, right? I'm gonna stay right here, just assume that, this is just how it's gonna be. And for patients, especially my doctors know, right? For once your patient mentally kind of checks out within their process of healing, it makes it so much more difficult to heal. Like I tell my patients all the time, like, yeah, I'm just the person there who can, prescribe a medication here, take a medication away from there. Like I'm like, I can do those things. But at the end of the day, it's really the patient who's going to be the biggest driver in making sure they get better. Because if mentally they don't think they're going to get better, then that just will succumb physically, and then physically, they become deconditioned, and all these things is just a terrible roller coaster downhill that we don't want. So so again, I recognize it just kind of happened, right? Like, wow, I'm like, all right, 2 people who are like clearly in what I call the danger zone, clearly in this level of comfort that they recognize they don't really want to be in. But the problem is the stress and burden and anxiety to try to get out of it is so much more that they're like, what, I'll just kind of stay content here, right? Like I'll just do what I need to do, right? And then I think about, and again, softly, I kind of mentioned kind of sometimes, especially when people kind of feel in the negative sense of it, right? Where, like I for those who know me, again, my wife, Marie Davis Pierre, she's a CEO founder of Autism in Black. Right. So we're actually working on her conference that's coming up, depending on when you watch this, right? In the June. Now, she's in a great position, right? Great position professionally, mentally, spiritually, great position. And sometimes that can even play a much more difficult factor, right? Because she's not in a position where she's doing bad in her position, but she's in a position where like there's so much other things that are likely going to be called upon her that she's going to likely have to step out, right? So again, the first couple scenarios, you have a scenario where like people are in positions that they don't really want to be in, but the stress of trying to get out of that position is so great that they're just like content. And then, I talked about Maria, my wife. She's in a position where she's in an absolute great position, But because she could do more, and because I think she's called upon to do more, right? Like, we're going to have to kind of, push and force her out of the very comfortable position that she's in, because she has such of a greater need that she needs to serve, right? So you have these instances where being in a comfort zone isn't always a negative thing, right? You have a lot of people who are in comfort zones, but they're in a very positive state. Like, everything is looking good, feeling good, everything's doing great. So they could just chill and then kind of live their life and be okay. But then the question becomes, like, are they fulfilling their best potential and getting everything they should be getting out of the gifts that are given? And you have the first couple instances where they kind of recognize that, yeah, I could be doing more, I should be doing more, but right now I'm not doing more, right? So because of that, like, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, and you know what, I'll just stay here, because what more work should I have to do to try to get out of it? Then you have the opposite spectrum where you're like, you know what, I'm really, really good right now. I could do more, but why do I need to do more, right? And then you almost have to have a different type of motivation to push those people out of that comfort / danger zone, right? So again, lots of different factors when we think about this aspect of the comfort zone, right? So I want to kind of quick definition of the comfort zone just so we can kind of get an idea. It is defined as a psychological state in which a person feels at ease because they are not tested, right? These people typically don't engage in new experiences. They don't take on new challenges. They typically do things that are very familiar. How many of you are listening or watching and are in a state where, like, you just kind of wake up, what your schedule is going to be, it's going to happen at work, you kind of do your task at work, you get home, you do your routine tasks, and then you're going back to sleep, right? Like, that is your Monday through Friday and every other weekend, right? Like, you kind of know, like, that's what you do every single day, right? So there's not even an increased mental thought that occurs, because you're like, oh no, this is what I do, right? And you have those people who, when they're in that zone, again, like I said, either they like what they're doing or they don't like the way they're doing, but because they're not having to really change their habits, they're not having to change their routines, it doesn't cause any change in the rise of anxiety, doesn't cause any change in the rise of stress, right? And their performance just kind of is even keel. And that's one big thing to notice, right? That their performance level of what they're doing really doesn't change very much. We all know some people at work where, when they come into work, they're going to give you that same level of effort every single time, no change whatsoever. Like, this is what you're getting out of me, and I'm gone, right? Like, those are the people who are in a level of comfort that you're not going to really shake them, because this is the effort I'm providing, because I know the effort I provide gets this certain amount of output, right? That's what they do. And these people, especially when you're in your comfort zone, right? We all notice we avoid feeling anxiety, we avoid feeling stress, we avoid feeling pain. And for those, especially in the medical profession, just so I can bring it back to my medicine folks, right? There are a lot of physicians out here who are sitting, and again, that's what we kind of bring back kind of like the negative aspect of the comfort zone. They are burnt out. They are disengaged. If you're a patient out there and a doctor who, doesn't really know who you are, doesn't really pay attention, just kind of writes their scripts, says 3 million in 3 months, they're not really there for your care. You've probably seen this patient either in an emergency room, in the clinic, in the health. You've seen this type of physician somewhere, right? But you have those physicians who are burnt out, right? Who are disengaged. But because of the stress that would occur if they left the position that they're in, they just stay there. So they stay in a job they don't like. They stay working for people that they don't really respect or want to work for. They stay taking care of patients who, they're like, I'm just here, but they're not engaged with their patient's care. They stay there because the stress and the anxiety and the pain that it would take to leave that position is greater than the burnout and the disengagement that they're experiencing, right? How many of y'all, if you're on the patient side, have seen a doctor like this? How many of y'all on the medical side, right, are feeling like this? And you're like, yeah, you're right, man. Because yeah, I could leave this job, but where am I going to go? I got to start this thing. Like just that mental process of trying to start over again is so much for them that they don't want nothing to do with it. Even if starting over may mean starting in a different position, may mean starting in a position that's going to make them 100 times happier. They don't want to have to go through the stress of the possibility that it doesn't. So they just kind of stay in their position there, right? And when we talk about why they leave, we kind of mention it, right? Fear, anxiety, uncertainty, comfort, and most importantly, we've talked about this on the podcast and the Lunch and Learn podcast, as well as our Medicine Mondays, is their mindset. They have such a fixed mindset that wherever they're at right now is going to be where they're at right now, and it's not going to get any better. Or wherever they're at right now, I'm super comfortable, and if I'm super comfortable, I don't want to have any more challenges, and because of that, I'm not going to expand. I'm not going to work on myself getting better. I'm not going to work on doing something different to move the position I am in now. So that's why they stay stuck, right? Again, that's why sometimes your comfort zone can be like quicksand, because you don't even realize that you're sinking. You're just going down slowly, and you're just like, I'm just here. Like I'm whatever. And it's something I experience every time I go to work. Because typically, for those who know, especially if you follow me on social media, you know that one of my hypest days are Mondays, right? Like I absolutely love Mondays, right? Because I feel like my energy level, right, is the highest on Mondays. Why? Because I know that like if I have a great energy boost and energy level starting on the beginning of the week, that there's no way it's going to dissipate by the end of the week to the point where people are like, oh my God, you must are about to have off tomorrow, right? Like no one is looking at me on Fridays thinking like, oh man, you must be ready to get out of here. Like, nah, like I have just as much hype to go into work to see and take care of my patients that I do on Friday that I do on Monday. But I think a lot of it is because I start such refreshed and rejuvenated spirit on Monday to make sure it carries me over, right? But again, we have a lot of people who won't leave, right? They're fearful, right, that if they make those business changes won't work, right? They're uncertain, right, that if they make those health conscious related changes, man, maybe if I start, eating lower salt foods, right? Maybe if I start watching, my blood sugar, right? Maybe if I start, keeping track of my blood pressure, right? Maybe if I start keeping track of making sure I'm taking all of the medications I need to take, or maybe like just go to the doctor, right? Again, I'm just assuming people are going to the doctor, right? But maybe if I just go to the doctor and get that annual checkup, right, like I'll feel a little bit better. But that uncertainty to go see that doctor, right? That uncertainty to make whatever investment needs to be made in your business keeps a lot of us in that quote unquote comfort / danger zone, right? And again, as we move into the month of July, like we have to like really start asking ourselves, like, are we 100% okay with the position I am in as we speak, right? Like whenever you're watch this or listen to this, are you 100% okay with the position that you're at? And if that answer is no, I'm not 100%, like then you have to do something about it, right? And because we know there's some fear, because we know there's some uncertainty, because we know there's some anxiety, because we know there may be some pain, right? It's not going to shock us when it occurs, right? I was listening to somebody's album. I was listening to somebody's album, right? And he talked about like as a boxer, right? When a boxer gets hit in the ring, they're not shocked, surprised, and say, oh, I got to quit after they get hit. Why? Because they recognize that like, hey, if I'm a boxer, there's a chance I could get hit. So if you're a business owner, right, you're an entrepreneur, if you're one of those people who understand that the business I'm in, there's a chance that, this might not work, but something else might not work, right? If you understand that, right, then that's less stressful when they say, you know what, I think you need to do something different, right? I think you need to offer a new product. I think you need to go on social media. It's less stressful because you already know what's there. Typically it's that level of uncertainty, like not recognizing like, hey, something is in that direction. I'm not sure what it is, but like, because I'm not sure what it is, I'm not going to go, right? We're not going to do that, right? Especially as we move into the tail end of the year, right? We are going to make the changes that we need to make, right? To make sure that in December of 2022, we're not looking back and saying, man, like Like if I would have just did this, I'd be a lot further along, right? Because that's what usually perplexes me more than anything else. Where I have people who they'll be looking, and in these 4 months down the line, 6 months down the line, and then they look back and they're like, they're still in the same position that they're in, and they don't understand, and they're sad that they're still in the same position that they're in. But when you ask them what action steps you actually took to make sure you're not going to be in your same position, is usually nothing, right? Like, we're not going to do that. And I saw this here. This was actually a good little thing, right? As far as like, how do we get out of this comfort zone? And because there's so many different ways, right? Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a business owner, whether you're just a patient and you want to get better from a health related standpoint, or you're a weightlifter, you're trying to gain a PR max, whatever that thing is, right? Like, two psychologists, Robert Yerkes and John Dutson, right, found an interesting relationship between performance and anxiety. And they mentioned that the optimal level of pressure or anxiety will increase your performance, but up until a certain point. Now, you've heard this before, right? You've heard people say like, yeah, you can push me to a certain point, but if you go too much, like, then everything becomes a negative effect. Now, trust me, there's going to be, mental health gurus and everything. They're going to be like, no, like, no, that's not true. You got to push yourself to the absolute limit. And when you hear the absolute limit, again, this kind of theory is not saying that, like, you should go at it as a softball-ish type approach, right? Like, underhand. Like, no, they're not saying that. They're saying that, like, you need to push yourself to some level where you start feeling uncomfortable, right? Because remember, right, when you're in that quicksand, it's very comfortable in the quicksand, but you have to start pushing yourself where it's just a little bit uncomfortable, understanding that when you push yourself to a little bit uncomfortability, it's going to be some stress there. It's going to be some anxiety. It's going to be some pain. You want to lose some weight. You might have to make some dietary changes, right? You might have to exercise more, right? You want to work on your blood pressure, right? You might have to watch what you're eating, right? You might have to, decrease the amount of salt intake, right? Right? You want to run faster, right? You're going to have to actually start running, right? You want your business to grow. You're going to have to do the things that's required for your business to grow, right? And sometimes, and majority of the times, I will say, when you're trying to make that change, whatever that change is, right? Like, that's away from that midpoint where the comfort zone resides, right? That's away from that point, right? Like, so when you're trying to say like, hey, yeah, I'm trying to do better than yesterday, right? I am just, again, I'm not telling you shoot for the moon. I'm just saying, hey, I'm trying to be better than I was the day before. You cannot do that if you're still stuck in that same position, still doing the same actions, still having the same routine with absolutely no changes, right? Then without any actions, right, there will be no results. Like, that's what, if you don't get anything from this week's discussion, right, without any actions, you will not have any results. If you want to have, the same level of stress, the same level of anxiety, right? If you want to be content with the position that you're in now, right, do absolutely nothing. It's very easy to do that because the comfort zone allows you to do that. It allows you to kind of stay in this old routine where nothing actually happens. But if you want to look at yourself in 1 month, in 3 months, in 6 months, in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years, if you want to look at yourself in the future and say, yeah, that's where I want to be, you cannot get there unless you do some changes that has to start today. So as we think about, our process, like I said, we're going into the midway of the year, right? It's about to be July soon. And as we're thinking about like, what changes do I need to make? Again, I'll tell you, for my business, I met up with my VA yesterday. A few days ago. And I just kind of talked to her like, hey, you know what? We're getting to the mid part of the year. I want to kind of do a review of, how, this first 6 months was. And then I want to make some changes. I want to do some improvements because I don't want to, even though I'm in a great position. I tell people all the time, I love my life. Everything is great. I get to talk to you guys. I get to educate you guys. And, like, I do it like, because like I'm trained to do it. I love doing it. And because I love doing it, again, I can also be in this level of comfort too, right? Because I'm constantly working on trying to prove myself for the better, I recognize like, yeah, I could be doing that better. Oh, I could, I could deliver, this, message a little bit easier, right? Or health wise, I could lose some more weight, right? I could eat less, right? I could exercise. I could do all these things that I recognize, even if for myself, I can do. And because I recognize it, because you have to do it, you have to recognize that the position you're in is a level of comfort that you need to change. Then I'm able to kind of take that first step to go, right? I'm not concerned about taking the 100th step, because if I don't take that first step to make a change, the 100th step doesn't matter. And I think that's where a lot of us get tripped up. We're worried about step 100, step 500, step 5,000, right? We're worried about like that last step. So because of that, we won't even take step number 1 to go, right? Like I want us to take step number 1 and kind of get it moving, right? Like that's really the name of the game, right? So again, I am yours truly, right? Again, I just felt like it just all of these things just kind of happened like right in this kind of this bunch of just kind of friends and family and just patience and everything kind of happened. I said, oh, you know what? This is definitely the message that I want to bring to you guys this week, right? So again, I am yours truly, Dr. Pierre, your favorite board certified internist. I can't wait to see you guys next week.